Welcome to Exit Algorithms, the podcast where we decode what it really takes to scale, exit, and preserve the legacy of your business for the long term. Today's guest is George Rivera, founder of Buyback Time Formula and a serial operator and entrepreneur who has built multiple eight-figure companies with hundreds of millions in revenue. George helps entrepreneurs buy back 30 or more hours per week without simply throwing more headcount at the problem. Using a structured owner-operator system, operational discipline, and smart use of technology. Today, we'll cover how to get out of day-to-day chaos in your business, build a company that runs without you, and position that business for a high-value exit. George, I'm so excited to have you. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Pete. Excited to be here. Can't wait to dig in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'd be great if you don't mind. Can you share a bit about your background? Feel free to brag about your accomplishments, and zoom out and what are the key chapters in your business and life journey?
Yeah, well, good question. There's quite a bit there, so I'll just kind of give you the broad strokes, and we can dig in wherever you feel. But yeah, super high level. Been online for 30 years, going on 31 here coming up soon. For a majority of that time, been in direct response marketing. Have generated over $400 million in sales. One company in particular I started 10 years ago, essentially opened up a new LLC, threw 5,000 into it, and I sort of treated it like a client because I had an agency at the time. And my mentality was, hey, so this business is just going to survive or not based on the performance of some ads that I buy with that $5,000. And then $200 million later, I've never had to refund the company again. So that's kind of a cool thing. But yeah, I'd say the big thing that kind of brought the buyback time formula to fruition starts way back in my early history. Going way back, this is like the late 80s, early 90s, before dinosaurs roamed the earth, I guess. I was middle school, high school, and I played in about 40 games. And my dad only went to one of those games. And I always wondered, like, man, what am I not important enough? Like as a kid, you don't know how to process that. And he was a very busy medical doctor, essentially gave his life to his career. And yeah, so I remember like scoring a basket, and I'd look to the stands, and there's like no dad in the stands. Cue the sad music and the crickets that you hear in the movies. And my friends or teammates, they'd score a basket, and their dads were on the sidelines cheering them on. That's my son, you go. And I remember looking at another dad, just like loving on his kid after a good play, and I was like, man, I wish that was my dad. And that would have really crushed my dad because he was a good man. There's no manual on how you do life, and we have a tendency to build ourselves into this what I call like a prison, a founder prison that we find it hard to dig out of. And so fast forward about 20 years later, which is now 10 years ago, 2015, my dad's entering his 40th year of his medical practice. And then just gearing up for the last third of his life. He's 67. My grandparents, his parents, had passed away a couple years prior in their mid 90s. Kind of old age and good health, but like they weren't deteriorating or no dementia or anything like that. And then my other grandparent went shortly after, kind of like that broken heart, like, hey, my other half's gone. It's time for me to go. Lovely way to go. Sign me up for that. And so he thought he had this long run ahead of him. But then, there's this phrase, God laughs at man's plans. Um, he found out that he was diagnosed with cancer early in the year and given 6 to 9 months to live. And he actually lived about 10 months, but running up to the end of his life, a couple weeks prior, he gave me these words that essentially became the foundation of everything that I'm doing now. And he said, don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours. And Leo's my son at the time. He's about 10 months old. Around the time my dad got diagnosed, he's right after that he was born. And when he told me that, it hit me like a ton of bricks in a couple of ways. And first, it was like, wow, he acknowledged that pain from my childhood of him not being there. I didn't really know where to park that, but I was like, there was just like beautiful closure to that open loop in my head. I thought I'd never think about that again, but it just swooped up. And then the second thing is, oh my goodness, I am my dad all over again. As we were growing up, my dad always provided us nice homes and cars and trips to Europe. His career gave him, monetary success. And I was doing the same thing, cars, homes, and trips to Europe to my family. I'm like, my dad taught me how to be, that we learn from our parents, especially like sons learn from their dads. And so I realized, wow, I did not enjoy my dad being absent from those moments. So I don't want to do that to my son. That's kind of the thought that was running through my head. And at that time, I'm already blowing it. My son, like I said, he's 10 months old. He was kind of an early walker, moving around, talking, communicating. Not super clear, but like his first attempts to. And I'm like blowing it all, like missing his firsts. And I'm depending on my wife to take video and pictures so that I can actually be part of that at a distance, which is not the ideal place to be. So anyway, that was the first time that it was like lovingly implanted upon me that I can't keep going this way. And so again,
Yeah.
2015, my dad passes away a couple of weeks later, and his biggest regret now became my biggest mission in life. But first, I had to apply it to myself. And so I'm thinking, all right, I love this. I'm on board with this. But then I'm like, all right, I'm working 16-hour days because I'm the only one that can do this stuff for my company. My family's got this lifestyle. I don't want to reverse that lifestyle. So I'll figure this out tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes 3 years. And so this is now 2018, and scaled my business to $20 million that year. And I have a money printer. Like I press a button, spits out money. Um, as long as I'm not buying helicopters every day, like we should be good and set for life. Like monetarily, we're doing very well. But at the same time, I'm hating life. I have like the world's worst org chart. Imagine me at the top and like 40 people underneath, and I delegate down to them, and it just comes back to me like a boomerang. And I start robbing from the future. So instead of like what I should have done, stop, let's properly train them even before that. But anyway, if it boomerangs back to me, let's make sure you get this, take some extra time, and then pass it on back down. But nope, I would just say, I'm just going to do it right now because I'm busy, knock it out, boom, done. It's faster if I just do it. But now I'm training my team that I'm the firefighter, I'm the hero, not them. And now they're on payroll. Now I'm paying out money for services or for a job that I'm actually partially doing for them. Kind of an insane place to be. And so, frustrated with life and not enjoying life, I remember I sent my dear friend. Well, he's a dear friend now, but at the time he was a mentor. I mean, still is a mentor, and he was in Europe this particular week that I just had my burnout essentially.
Mm.
He's like, "Hey, I'll be back next week. Once I'm back in the States, we'll kind of pick it up again. And if you need anything, just email me." So I'm like, okay. So I had all this pent up frustration that I just needed to get out. So I'm going to email him. So I bang out this email saying, there are just some days I hate this business. And I don't use hate lightly. When I say it, I like mean it and I feel it in my
Mm.
bones. Things like, the administrative side of the business. I like doing the marketing side, the copy, the conversions, the sales strategies, the recurring revenue, but not the merchant accounts, the customer support stuff. And I had people to do all that, but it kept boomeranging back to me. And so I send this email, kind of like a cry for help, essentially. And I hit send, and then you feel better. You kind of got it off your chest. And now I'm like, I'm gonna go back to work until I pass out on my desk, because that's kind of like how my life was at the time. And
Mm.
so I'm thinking, all right, I'll hear from him next week. But 20 minutes later, he calls me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, he's with his family in Rome, and it's midnight over there. It's afternoon in the States, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't. And he's like, no, no, don't worry. Like, this is a cry for help. This is an SOS message. This isn't just some let's pick it up next week. And so yeah, from at that point, we had a 2-hour conversation. The high level one or two sentence overview is stop doing what you don't like doing, keep doing what you like doing. And I'm just like, okay, 23 years in business, and that finally clicks. I'm a late bloomer, better late than never. And that phone call became the foundation of what I'm doing now with the Buyback Time Formula. Of course, that name didn't exist, and like my dad's message to me, I had to apply it to myself first, and then later, years later, is where we start sharing it with the world. So fast forward almost 3 years, and it should have been a year, but the entrepreneur in me, the identity of I'm the best one at doing this, and didn't want to let go of a lot of tasks. So it took stepping out in faith, basically, to sort of trust the people that you have in place. because one mistake in the accounting department can be a six-figure mistake when you're doing that kind of volume. And so there's a little bit of like stress associated with giving up that task, like is common with many tasks. And so the pinnacle of transformation happened about 3 years later, scaled the business, more than doubled to just shy of $50 million. But now I'm living a semi-retired lifestyle. Never working more than 30 hours a week and only working in my zone of genius, which is revenue moving activities, not, important, but not needle moving activities. Somebody else should be doing it, not this brain right here, because I need to be focused on more revenue. But like I said, semi-retired for the most part. And more importantly, on the family side, the benefits have been I can pour into my son. So like, remember my dad said, don't miss Leo's games. He literally said, don't miss his games, like be there. So that's one, never missed any of his games. But that also had another meaning, sort of like his way of saying, just don't miss out on his life. Just be there for him.
Yeah.
And so I can gladly say I taught him how to negotiate real estate at 8 years old. To this current day, he's got a podcast now.
Yeah.
And we're able to just pour into him and really establish, a nice foundation for a good legacy that he can continue to carry forth. And so I'd say that was the biggest win. And then kind of like coming more to current day, or maybe earlier this year, is kind of when this whole idea of buying back time came to place. Because I had a number of friends and peers over the last couple of years say, "Man, this is awesome. You got to teach this stuff. Like share this." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not a coach or a consultant. I just do this stuff." And I'm like, "What do I do? Do I teach people how to travel, how to be with your kids?" Like it wasn't clear in my head. And then over the earlier in this year, the whole concept and the whole idea of buying back time, remove yourself from being the bottleneck in your business to being present with your family, came to play. Now, these frameworks work for anybody who's trapped in their business. They don't have to be a dad. They doesn't have to be a man. It could be anybody who's a bottleneck in their business and they just want to do something else with their life. I'm a family first, father first kind of guy. So I know my story is going to resonate with a lot of men like me 10 years ago. And my avatar, to speak marketing, or ideal client, is cash rich, time poor. Cash rich in the sense that you're very successful in your business, very successful on paper, but your business is getting all your time and not your family. Your family's getting, the burned out version of you, the stressed version of you, the frustrated, the short tempered, kind of the inattentive version. Like, yeah, you're talking to me, but I'm also like on my phone at the same time. That version, which is the fraction of your attention on them. And so yeah, my goal is to help walk men through the same transformation I did 10 or a little under 10 years ago now. And so yeah, I know I threw a lot out at you. So wherever you want to pick it up from there, we can pick it up.
Yeah, man, I love that. The story really tugs the heartstrings. I heard it the first time that he gave the presentation in Austin. But yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of people can relate to that experience, that image of the empty stand. Um, it's sad.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would hope that, when you look back on your life and you're 80, you kind of, if you kind of can get that perspective, like what is important in the moment, or now, and yeah, no, I like hearing that. So I think it's good to re-hear that. Um, so yeah, I wanted to kind of double tap on a couple things you said. Do you notice any patterns with people in the founder prison, like with some of your clients? Like, what do you see that's common between them and how they're spending their time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the big overall pattern is that we, and I speak as a former person stuck there, are often doing way more than what we should be doing. Like, we're experts in a certain thing, like I call it our zone of genius. But we're only putting a fraction of our time in that zone of genius, and we're focused on doing so many things we shouldn't be doing, even if we have a team, even if we have the resources to bring on people. For reasons, there's probably dozens of reasons, but the biggest one could just be the identity that we put on ourselves. Sometimes being the hero is kind of fun, solving problems, because then you get praise and admiration from your team. The problem comes up to George, and George gets to be Superman for a few minutes, and then they get to like glow and, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. But again, like I said earlier, you're training them to essentially depend on you and to put out the fires, and you're robbing them from the ability to solve the problem and have their own identity as somebody who can be proud of what they do because they solve problems. I mean, sure, anybody will take advantage of or not anybody, but a lot of people would take advantage of sort of have the boss do it for them and kind of write that free check or maybe smallly contributed to the percentage of earnings check or whatever I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think it's just that identity of being the firefighter in your business. And you know, there's this cortisol dopamine loop. The cortisol
Mm.
is the stress level. Sometimes it takes us reaching a certain level of stress to like motivate us to take action, and we're chasing something, and a lot of times that's that dopamine hit of being the hero. And then once we do that,
Yes.
okay, awesome, and we're trying to bask in that glory, and then it just goes away, and I'm okay, what's next? I need more, I need more. And so yeah, just recognizing that and then disconnecting from it was huge for me, realizing that I don't need to live in that identity, and there's way better than this, and it's costing my family, you know, my presence and even just my you know, my attitude and my you know, my position in the moment. So so yeah, hopefully that answers that for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's funny, it's I think in a lot of people's heads, like they're afraid of letting go and get delegating or automating processes. But you had the surprising effect of actually being able to scale your business double, right? Uh, is that I I just think that's funny. And what time do you suggest business owners start automating? Because I know, Alex Hormozy, for example, recommends sales revenue maybe about 40K a month before, or a half a million a year, roughly, before starting to delegate and hire salespeople. Would you agree with that, or what is your metric for that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I don't have any hard number. For me, it's just once you hit traction and you've got a system that you could scale. Obviously, that's very subjective, but you know, like I'll just go to my example. So from like startup slash, you know, $1 million a year range to 20 million, my journey was scaling chaos. And so when you're scaling chaos, you're essentially making those prison bars thicker and thicker the more that the revenue comes in. And so I had to make a dramatic shift and implement some of the frameworks that I talk about in the Buyback Time Formula. At that time, they didn't formally exist in that kind of format. It's more just research and you know, like learn from others who've sort of been through this path before, and then have my own explanation, my own transformation, and put my own version and how it applies with my own stories and situation. And so that's how I was able to go from 20 to just shy of 50 by scaling systems. And it made the company able to like kind of grow and even shrink if we ever have to, but it's easy to sort of like add on or remove as needed, like a variable thing, as opposed to you know, like a process that's continuously broken, that's you know,
Mm.
essentially not an enjoyable place to be as a business owner or your team. But yeah, going back to your question about the about at which point, I think it's probably very subjective depending on the founder's you know, financial stability at that time, because you know, 40K in revenue, is it profitable? Is it barely, you know, breaking even? You know, who knows? But given that Alex Hormozy's stance is about that time frame, I will not argue with Alex Hormozy. So he's definitely a sharp man, and yeah, one of the great leaders in kind of the business space right now. So I'm endorsing Alex Hormozy's thought on this.
And that was heard through someone who went through one of his programs, so I don't know if that's exactly right, but I mean, it seems to make sense. You want to kind of control the business, at least the sales aspect, for a certain period of time till, you know, you can start training others and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Well, when Alex hears this, he'll let us know. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know, Alex. Yeah, I was curious. So I've read a bit of your book. I'm still going through it, but I wanted to kind of skim and get some ideas to ask you about. Do you mind sharing the about the owner operating system and kind of the core components of that?
Yeah, so the owner operating system stands on these three unshakable pillars, and it's first is profit. Like we need to maximize profit. So we want to like review expenses, see where there's overlap, where there's like waste, and there's typically overhead associated with that waste. So we want to optimize that. There's other things that we could go deeper into. Like for example, I have connections with some financial experts that'll sort of review like a tax return to maximize the tax side of the business as well as the cash flow side of the business. I get together with experts on that because essentially I'm just a marketer. I'm high level aware of those issues, but yeah, focusing on maximizing profit is a huge thing. And then it's exit ready is the next pillar. So we
Mm,
design the business to be exit ready. That means whether you sell it one day or you just want to extended absences, extended vacations. And you might recall from me sharing this with our group here, that exit ready, like the pinnacle of transformation happens when you can leave for 2 weeks and your business first, not that it doesn't fall apart, not that it maintains, status quo, but that it grows while you're away. And the
mm,
buck will stop at your number two. And there's only a couple of things that will pierce that. And it would be something like a catastrophic kind of 911 situation. Those issues like have never happened to me. I've rarely heard anything like that happen to a founder. But just for those that are thinking, oh my gosh, nothing. Well, yeah, catastrophic legal situation, things like that. But it's so rare, it's not even worth like speculating on what that could be. Because as we work to that 2 week vacation, we're going to get everything out of the founder in terms of, we're going to look under every rock. Like what are the potential situations, not like 911 emergencies, but like, like a banking situation, like, oh, only the signer can do this. So, okay, let's add your accounting department, somebody trusted there to be a signer so that, we don't need to hound you when you're on vacation for, oh, we need to log in because we need to approve this payment and you're the only one that can do it. Just kind of coming up with hypothetical scenarios
yeah.
there. And so the exit ready business is the second pillar. So again, extended
Mm,
absences or preparing to sell. And businesses that don't require the owner to be present get a higher multiple.
yeah.
Businesses that have the owner tied to it like a ball and chain don't. Especially if you know that as a potential buyer, that could also just be a leverage talking point, or negotiating point of, hey, you are tied like a ball and chain here, so we're gonna offer less. And
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you how all that works out, but I think you understand what I'm saying. And then the third thing is presence. Now we're gonna buy back time. What do we do with it? Most people kind of have an idea of what they want to do. Some people have been blowing it for so long, they're just like, I know I need to do it. I have no idea. So presence with your family, again, it could be anything, but in the context of my story resonating with fellow dads and founders, I believe it's going to be presence with the family. And then we install something what's called the season pass, which is protecting super important moments for your family. Again, if you have no idea,
Mm,
we'll figure it out. Scientifically, there's a number of things that are pretty common amongst every family. Like there's three most important times of the day that your kid is in the position to like see you and really like, be accepting from you. Like for example, in the morning when they wake up, when they come home from school, or in the evening, kind of like after dinner time before going to bed. Those are moments when your kids are like most receptive to like receive something from you. So if you're a founder and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm blowing everything, well, start small baby steps. You can like pick one of those times. You've got, if we're just going with 5 business days a week, you got what is that? 15 opportunities. So like pick a couple and baby step your way into it. So that's the third pillar of the owner OS. So we're incorporating presence for the family because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing it for. We always say we're doing it for the family, and maybe we are, but it's like, have you ever thought maybe your family didn't ask you to do it to that level, to where you're not present for them? And so yeah, those are the three core pillars of the owner operating system.
love it. Wow. Yeah. Really good takeaways. Uh, man, there's a lot of things that could go deeper on. Well, the theme of this show, Exit Algorithms, is about preparing for a successful exit. And we talked a little bit on the pre-show, once you were able to automate your business for the most part and it's running with minimal day-to-day involvement. You can you speak on that a little bit? How really that impacts, because I know from a buyer perspective, of course, you don't want to buy a business that you're just going to have to go in there and try to run. And if the fear a lot of buyers have is they buy the business, the current owner leaves, and then all of those relationships and everything also leave with him. So I would love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the worst thing. And oftentimes those type of businesses, they just get passed over because hey, they might look good on paper, but we see the risk. And a savvy, buyer, savvy investor sort of like, hey, we've been down this road. So we're gonna go where yeah, everything's a bit more documented and not owner dependent. And so yeah, that's the goal. If you're in a position of I wanna put my business essentially ready for sale at some point. It doesn't happen overnight, but you need to essentially break the ball and chain from your ankle and put in systems. And I call it the time liberation trifecta. And these are three things that you can do with any task that you shouldn't be doing. And even to take a step back, before we even identify those tasks, you need to review your time, do what I call the freedom audit or a time audit. Look at the last 2 weeks and see what it is you've been doing. Now, if you're like me and you hear this for the first time, I'm like, well, I have calls and stuff, but I'm not like putting everything that I'm doing. So yeah, don't worry about that. Start now. Start now for the next 2 weeks and document everything. Literally like brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, picking up the mail, because you don't want to start kind of self-judging moment by moment. Is this even worth documenting? Because you'll see, because I did this mistake at first, that there were certain even little tasks that I was like, yeah, it's not even worth noting. And I'm like, no, this is exactly why I need to note it because I shouldn't be doing this. And so
Mm.
writing everything you do sort of removes that whole judgment thing. Should I put it? Should I not? It's like the answer is yes, you should. And and 2 weeks is a long enough window to really identify a lot of what I like to call low-hanging fruit things that we could just like completely eliminate essentially. But you'll start seeing a pattern in the first 2 or 3 days that you're like, okay, let's keep an eye on how we're doing this. But once you have that perspective of what we need to like get rid of, because that's the only way you're going to go anywhere is to have like kind of like your roadmap or your foundation. So this is our foundation. And in my case, when I did this, at the time, I was working as little as 60-hour weeks and as much as 90-hour weeks. Not a fun life at the time anyway. And so when I did this, I realized that I was spending 40 hours a week on tasks that were $50 or under per hour. And I'm a minimum $1,000 an hour guy, upwards of $10,000 an hour when I'm like working in my zone of genius, which are needle moving activities that move revenue in the business. And so, just quick math, I'm not a math wizard or anything, but 40 hours times $50 is $2,000. And so remember, I had my little money printer there. There's like no big deal for $2,000, which is nothing for a business that's doing that kind of revenue, or I shouldn't say nothing, but it's not a major expense. It literally was what bought back my freedom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, why wasn't I doing this years ago? But whatever, we finally got it, late bloomer. And so once you start buying back your time and you see that it works, you get addicted to the process, almost like, oh my gosh, what else can I do? What else can I do? And in my case, I did it to the point where I was only working in my zone of genius, as I call it. And so, like the old way, I'm working 60, 90-hour weeks, and I'm still sometimes working in my zone of genius, but I'm burnt out, low energy, foggy visibility, yeah, grumpy, upset, whatever, while I'm in my quote zone of genius. So I'm working little to no effectiveness to now getting all that stuff off my plate. Now I'm working less than 30 hours. So the benefit on the lifestyle family side is they get me back. They get the energized version of me, not the burnt out, frustrated version of me. The new identity, which is removing the hustle and grind kind of culture that I was living before. But how this relates to the work side of things is now I'm crystal clear in my zone of genius. And so, whereas before, let's just say I was still working 30 hours before in my zone and currently 30 hours in my zone, but that 30 hours was bundled in addition to another 40 that was just low energy stuff. So you can imagine not having that low energy, low kind of value stuff important, but it shouldn't be me doing it. Um, that maximized the 30 hours with full clarity. So it's almost like those same 30 hours now became like 10 times more effective, if that makes sense. The results were just it were instantly like you could like feel the improvement there. And so that's how I can say work less and double your business. Like without any other context, it's like that doesn't make sense. You work less, who's going to do all this stuff and how do you make more money? Like logic tells you it should like work less, you make less. But it doesn't happen through wishful thinking or magic. It happens through frameworks and having other people do what it is that you shouldn't be doing. Like I said earlier, this all leads to the time liberation trifecta, which is essentially the things that you can do to any task that you shouldn't do. So the one thing you can do is keep doing it, and hopefully that's your zone of genius where your business makes the money. So we're still going to do that. But the things that you shouldn't be doing, there are three things you can do, which is automate, eliminate, or delegate. The order's not really a big deal, but the easiest thing to do is automate things that repeat and things that you shouldn't be doing essentially that and of course this was well before AI. So now that AI, you know, ChatGPT and all these others have come along, that sort of like helps that even better. The next one is eliminate. There's a lot of things that we shouldn't be doing, especially at that revenue level. I was on meetings that I shouldn't have been on, and just like overseeing other tasks that like I had no business doing. And so I was able to just eliminate things that don't move the needle, eliminate projects that don't move the mission, that weren't in alignment to our goals, eliminated. So like we didn't have to worry where to park this. This is just gone. And so that right there is like low hanging fruit. We buy back that time. And then the next one is delegate. Now, had you told me 10 years ago, hey, you should delegate, I said, yeah, I'm delegating. I got my 40 people and all that. But there's a process to delegation that makes it work, not just delegate for the sake of delegating. You need to transfer ownership of what it is you're delegating, and you need to give them the liberty to improve upon the process, assuming that they're qualified. And I talk about how to hire people that are qualified, kind of different topic, but we're assuming that they're capable people to take what you're doing and even improve upon it. But at the bare minimum, you know, you share with them the process of what you're doing, and yeah, I'll explain in like 30 seconds. Essentially, is you know, with Loom, you can record a
Nice.
process. You take the transcript, put it in Chat GPT, tell Chat to like make you this beautiful SOP, review it real quick to make sure that didn't like miss anything because you know you're the one that did the Loom, and then you paste that on a Google Doc with the Loom video, and it's an ever updating Google Doc. So if a little process changes, you can quickly update it. And then I give it to the person who's going to take the task, who's going to own this task. And I say, hey, I'm here for 10, 20 minutes. Watch it and let me know if you have any questions. And if they do, we little tweaks, clarification. Okay, how about now? Okay, tweak. Okay, how about now? Okay, you're
Nice.
good. Good. You own it. Goodbye. I should never, ever, this should never come back to me ever again, unless there's a significant change in the process, a vendor changes, the technology changes, which can happen. But for the most part, that is off your plate. The person who's doing the task now realizes what the outcome looks like. You've given them the liberty to improve upon it. And so, yeah, that is done. That's off your plate. That's just one example. But like I said, once you get one of those things working well off your plate, you get addicted and you want to do it more and more. And so
Yeah.
once you buy back your time doing this process, you have to guard it like your life depends on it. Because, and speaking from experience, sometimes, you know, launching new businesses or even going into like expanding the vision of your current business can sort of like suck you back into that, you know, technician mode instead of being the architect. Which is what we want to reach, the architect level where we're visionary, we're kind of like designing it high level versus, you know, technician who's literally doing the work, or the operator who's sort of like overseeing the technician. That's why we have a structure, and you put in people who are responsible for different departments. I know that's kind of going off on the side on operational structure, but yeah, it that was just my experience going through it. I know there's a lot of people like me, that the me of 10 years ago, cash rich, time poor, stuck in that. And yeah, I'm just providing a lifeline for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for expounding on that and kind of the getting into the little bit of the nitty gritty, how to that trifecta is really powerful. Automate, eliminate, or delegate. I love that. And another thing you mentioned, which is a huge theme also of this podcast, is implementing AI and technology to assist in business scaling, And then it goes hand in hand with buying back your time as well. Can you expound a little bit on how you recommend using AI? Um, you know, I think AI at this point is common knowledge. It's use or AI or die.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it.
Eventually, like you have to start implementing it. So yeah, and any practical recommendations on that?
Yeah, no, you're right. Like a year ago, I think we could have argued like, hey, are you adopting it? Yes or no. But now it's like, if you aren't, you're going to be left behind by those that are because of the efficiency. Like you can't afford not to use AI anymore. Yeah, some simple things like in the whole kind of under the elimination bucket, I've been able to remove myself from a lot of like needless meetings because of AI. We have our Fathom, our note takers that can join in on our behalf. Obviously, you still need another person on your team there to like be present for the meeting. But as opposed to like me, the business owner in these meetings, where I'm like, I might only be useful for like two or three things in this meeting that's an hour long that I could be doing other things. And it's so long that this isn't some relationship that I have to nurture, but this is like maybe a vendor and we're discussing, certain things. It's like, send me the notes. I can review it and have my AI scan it and see if there's anything where I need to chime in on, and then we can address that. Otherwise, like 9 out of 10, it's kind of like high level info. It's good to have, but hey, catalog this so that we can kind of build a kind of like a thread or little directory of kind of where this conversation is going. But
Yeah.
and then for relevant background info, so if and when I do need to be in the conversation, I could say, hey, give me the high level updates so I'm caught up and present for that conversation where it can move the needle. So that's just one example of eliminating low level tasks that AI could essentially kind of fill on the gap there. I mean, another one from a marketing perspective, because that's my whole zone of genius, is just new creative ideas and angles. I'm trying hard not to let AI sort of like replace my brain, because I think in the future, like people that do that, it's just gonna feel artificial whenever like we go in like in-person meetings. It's almost like, what would chat say about this? Versus like my own brain. So I consciously am careful about outsourcing all of my thinking to it. But what I like to do is sort of like train it how I think, so that I can brainstorm back and forth with it on marketing ideas, and things that used to take weeks or even months can be done in like less than an hour now. Creating full blown sales copy and themes and topics for content, for example, or even articles. That's all done with AI now. We don't have to worry about sitting down and looking at an empty screen trying to put something together. And so, yeah, there's so much more, but yeah, that's the kind of the low hanging fruit stuff. Like if you're not at least doing that, yeah, you better start to learn, because you're gonna get blown away. And I say that lovingly. Hopefully that opens some eyes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you touched on an important point, focusing on the inputs and training your AI as you would, a pet, right?
Yep.
If you don't train it and give proper inputs and teach it to talk how you talk, it's gonna pee on the couch, right?
Yep.
It's gonna spit out garbage. Like, uh, yeah. Do
Yeah.
you use any specific tools like besides ChatGPT? What are your top? You mentioned Fathom.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
what are
So
your favorite
yeah.
LLMs and such stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like most of the world, chat. I know like other power users kind of go to others. I've been playing around with Manus. Again, I kind of came up on chat, and so it's kind of a different kind of interface. But I'm learning like Manus can do so much more in terms of also provide similar like responses and research, but like build web pages and stuff. And I'm sure chat will get there, or maybe it can. I don't know. AI is advancing so much that it's like, man, things you say it should be doing, it's probably been doing it for a while and you just don't know. But yeah, then I use Gamma for presentations. I don't know if you've used that, but like I never use PowerPoint anymore. Literally found out about this 6, 7 months ago, and just like literally like, you're dead to me, PowerPoint. I'm all Gamma. And it's like it's cut the time down significantly. Like what might have taken, even like in today's age, like say 6 months ago, I work on a PowerPoint in maybe 3 or 4 hours, which is still kind of quick compared to like could be weeks, a couple years ago. But now
Yeah.
that you have chat to help you with the content, now it's just formatting it so that it looks good. And I know people use Canva too. That could be another alternative. But Like Gamma is specifically designed for presentation. And I know there's other AIs, but Gamma is just the one that I landed on. I literally take the script, I pop it into Gamma, hit submit, and it creates this beautiful presentation. The only thing I got to do is just scan the images to make sure that they're relevant to the content. 90% of the time it is, but sometimes I say,
Mhm.
hey, have a family of young kids and parents, and then sometimes it's like three men and a little boy, and I'm just like, yeah, let's change that to like man or woman, and because it's just like you got to
Yeah.
be very specific, and sometimes the
Yeah.
prompts can be general. So and I've learned the hard way sometimes, not really a hard way, but like after already producing it, I didn't look at the images and I'm reading the script and I'm just like, oh yeah, I didn't, I didn't want to show like a grandma like driving a motorcycle or something. Like, how did you come up with this imagery? I was trying to find like an older person just smiling and having fun in life, but it took it like, hey, grandma riding a motorcycle. Yeah, that's fun. But I'm like, doesn't convey the message that I want. So there's a little bit of like review, but literally, if that's what all you have to do, then that's like nothing compared to the old way of doing it. So yeah, those are a couple of tools that I use. I can't claim to be the world's best expert on AI. I use it just enough for what I need to do. There's often a lot of things that still require human input. So we
Mhm.
delegate those properly as well, but then teach them how
Yeah.
to use AI to do their job better. Makes everybody more efficient, makes your money go faster and work more efficiently with your team as well.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It can, it really, people are afraid of it taking jobs, which it may potentially, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to just enhance what people are doing. I think there's a positive side to it as well. It can actually make you more creative or bring about ideas that you wouldn't have thought of. And an automation, I mean, it can do things that free up time ultimately, and that's I feel like a large part of technology in general is to free up time, especially disruptive technology.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, like you, like I was like, how's AI going to impact our future? I think there'll be some disruption. I'm hopeful that the net effect will be a positive one. That there might be some industries where people have to sort of like, where do I fit in here? And but every time there's like this major new like invention or life-changing technology, we always find a way to adapt. So
yeah,
we'll just have to see where it shakes out. One thing that like I said earlier, like you don't want AI to like replace your thinking because it is doing that for a lot of people. And I heard somewhere, I don't know where to validate this, but it feels true. So it's like 90% of the information on the internet now is AI generated. I don't know how to
wow.
validate that, but like, get on your Facebook, everybody's posting, AI, everybody's like poetic now all of a sudden. And so it's interesting. And one thing.
Using emojis and M dashes
Oh
and
my
yeah,
gosh, yeah, those M dashes. Like I told my chat, like no M dashes ever, and I get mad at it when I
never.
see them. Yeah, that's like the screaming AI. So anybody who's still doing that today, then you're yeah, I don't know, few months behind on the whole like let's not use M dashes thing, and then the emojis on everything. It's like nobody really talks like that. But it's interesting because, like I said, AI. I think a lot of people are gonna love the benefits a little too much, where they just forget how to think and especially the youth of today. And so I have a 10-year-old, going to be 11-year-old. My son Leo, who my dad told me not to miss his games. Like his friends and peers are kind of like just loving the benefits of AI for all the stuff that we know that it can do, but probably a little too much if I'm being honest. And that's why
Sure.
my son started a podcast, and that's awesome that you've got this awesome podcast because the ability to this is the ability to create real relationships in a world where people are going like all in on AI. And again, for the good, great, but like for replacing your ability to think for yourself, probably not so good. And by the time the people of that generation, like my son's generation, say another, 8 to 10 years, when they have to like feed themselves, they're not going to know how to look up from a phone and communicate to another human. But my son's going to have all these relationships because we've already done 10 episodes. We got like 40 people who want to do it. These are all high kind of like performers in the business because they're all like all my peers. And they just love the idea of pouring into a young boy like my son. He's setting himself up as you are, as anybody with a podcast, for a great future because of the relationships that are built by human connection, like we're doing right now. Like AI can like help us, think better or think for us in a lot of cases, but it's not going to replace what we're doing. Is like human talking to another human. Hey, I've got a connection for you, or let me get to know you, how it can help you. Like if you're too much in AI for like your thinking and everything else, you miss out on that. And I think you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. So I know it kind of threw a
Yeah.
lot out there
Uh,
on that topic, but hopefully that
So,
landed somewhere.
yeah, 100%. And I was gonna ask you, I want to be respectful of your time. I have a meeting come up here.
Yeah.
Where you think AI is going? You touched on it a little bit. One of the dangers is, losing a little bit of your self, right? Your creativity. And um, is
Yeah.
it also possible that it could free up time and then you spend your time maybe, I don't know. Where do you
Yeah.
see AI going? I'll
No,
just leave it
I,
there.
I feel like there's a lot of things to be excited about and some concerns. I think the net positive or the net result will be positive. So like I'm optimistic on it. It's interesting because it's like, yeah, it's helping us write better, it's helping us communicate. But then if everybody's communicate, then like everybody's kind of getting drowned out by similar styles of clear communication. So now it's like information overload. It's like, oh, this guy's got a great message. Oh, so does this guy. So does this guy. And so I don't know. At some point, like, what's gonna make us stand out and drown out the noise and kind of like put the best communicators at the forefront, like it's been historically. And yeah, and that's where I think the human connection is sort of where like that will always remain. And in fact, it'll get stronger because, well, I don't know if there's like a chart of communications, like human to human is like up here. I imagine AI is just kind of like dwindling it down, if that makes sense. I mean, they'll still be strong, but it's just now it's like less common. And those that know that that's important, like you with this podcast, my son, um, we're the ones that'll will thrive when everybody's sort of like kind of spitting out the same information and competing in this sea of noise. Where yeah, their message probably sounds great compared to how people used to communicate 10 years ago, but now everybody's up their game, with AI. So it's like it all kind of sounds and feels the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's crucial to stand out, right? And
Yeah.
not and be not like that. And yeah, a little bit of a tangent, but relevant still. People are catching on to even that now too, and they'll tell it to leave a error in the, like have a mistake, a grammatical mistake or cap spelling. It's funny.
Yeah, yeah, trying to make it look authentic and yeah. So no, yeah, people will do that, and then eventually that'll kind of catch on, and then it'll like swing back and forth. Yeah, and so yeah, those are little tactics, valid tactics. I think that's a nice technique for a while, and but yeah, I think it just goes back to human connection will be something we can't really
Yeah,
AI our way into or out of. So as long
yeah,
as that remains forefront, I think we'll be good.
yeah. Can't replace that. Okay, last question, then I'll let you go. What is one thing you want to leave listeners with today?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it earlier about kind of the being 80 years old and looking back. Like I often say, like when we're like, our deathbed or old age, like when we realize that the end is near, however that might be, hopefully we last a long time, and we're looking back, like nobody ever says, I'm so glad I blew your game off for that client meeting. I guarantee you at that time, we're not going to remember the name of that client, but we will remember, these games and these events, whether we were there or whether we weren't there. And so I know all of us are going to reach that old age because it's just human nature, and we will have some regrets. I think that's part of humanity or the human mind is to think, hey, I could have done this and that better, and that's fine. We'll still have that. There's no way to like not have that, but I think the goal should be to minimize those so that when those thoughts come up, you're like, yeah, but on the flip side, when I realized that, that I don't want to be in this chair thinking only negative thoughts, I did something about it. And I was there for my family. So I can hang my hat up in that I gave it my best when I realized that I was on a trajectory that I didn't want to remain. And so yeah, I'd say those are the last things. And we can always make more money, but we can never rewind a childhood, or rewind the years that we miss, that we should be there present for our family. Maybe somebody's listening and they don't have kids, but they're married, or they're going to get married. Like, you want to pour into your wife, your spouse, and establish a deep bond, not just get married for the sake of, I'm married and now off to my career and we're gonna just live in this madness. It's yeah, be intentional. And yeah, so anyway, hope that all makes sense, but minimizing regrets when we get to the old age, and say that we gave it our best.
Beautiful. Yeah. Wow. I love this conversation. So many good insights. Thank you for pouring out to the audience today,
Thank you, Pete.
George.
Yeah, it was fun.
Is there any what's the best place people can find you? I'll leave a link. Yeah, links. I highly recommend the book. We talked about AI prompts at the end of the book. Like, there's a list of this incredible prompts to get people started, especially with AIs. So, and yeah, anything else, anywhere else they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, buybacktimeformula.com. There you could see a link to my book. It's free, just cover shipping. It's a heavy book, it's 128 pages, but I pour my everything I know about the frameworks into that book. There's other books that you can buy, and it's like you get little nuggets, but they're like, but you want the good stuff, you got to click this link and pay $5,000. And that's a valid marketing strategy, I guess. But I try not to leave anybody their mouth watering for more. Like, it's all in there. You can get this book and do it. Now, if you're like the me of 10 years ago, I would have paid a small fortune to collapse the time that took me from, trapped in my own prisoner to free and present with my family. And so I'm available to help if somebody finds themselves in that position. So, and my information's on my website, and it's in my book, as well as my socials. I post daily on Facebook and a couple of the other socials. Just little glimpses of my life, and kind of, motivational or life thoughts of the moment. So encourage anybody who's interested to follow me there, and you can message me, ask me questions. I'm definitely here, and love speaking with people. So just here to make an impact.
Awesome. Wow. I appreciate your time today, George. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. It's been fun.